Hello, my friends, and welcome. Today we have some more juicy and spicy news from inside Bioware about Dragon Age Veilguard. And it looks like the woke crybabies are throwing a tantrum because people are just not having any of this. So let's get into it. Let's do it.
Hey everyone, it's Endymion, and my goodness, 3 videos in a row and all about Dragon Age. It's almost as if too much nonsense is happening or something. In this video, I'll be telling you what I've been told by sources within Bioware, who have worked there in years past, and even people who are working there right now. Beyond this, we gotta talk about some cringe scenes in this game, EA CEO gaslighting players into believing that this is a new age for Bioware, and much more. Put on your hazmat suits, pray to whatever god you love, and let's start rolling in this nonsense. As of this video going live, Veilguard is available to play. God help us all. I don't think the game will do poorly out of the gate. However, we'll have to see if this game has any legs going forward in terms of staying power. I will be playing this game. I have it on my PS5 already, and I am fighting with myself here whether I want to make myself in the game as best as I can, or if I should create the most woke pandering dwarf they them as my rook. God help me, I am losing my mind over here.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think for everything that everyone's saying about, the use of pronouns and the woke agenda and all this stuff about this game, I mean, it is still a Dragon Age game. And just on that alone, a lot of people, I think, are going to buy it. But I think as soon as people start playing it, they're just going to be like, what the freak is going on with this game? Yeah, I'm not sure how well it's going to do. It's probably going to do fairly well, like I said, just because it is a Dragon Age game. But I think the word's going to spread pretty quickly.
Okay, let's start with the leaks that I've been told. So I spoke to a few Bioware devs. One of them definitely no longer works there anymore. But they had plenty to say, and I wanted to relay this information to you because I want to chronicle how things got this bad. To begin with, I asked this source, when did they start to see Bioware changing from what it was to what it is right now?
And that's true. It used to be a marvelous developer. They never put out games before they were done, and I respected that. And their games were absolutely fantastic. I mean, the first Mass Effect, I think the second Mass Effect is just a masterpiece. Yeah, so in the early Dragon Age games, wonderful.
And I'm told it was exactly when the first Gamergate happened, which was 2014, the same year that Inquisition came out.
Wow.
Of course, Inquisition wasn't really affected that much by Gamergate, as it was mostly done by the time Gamergate actually kicked off.
And that's why it was a good game.
But once this happened, which, if you don't know, the first Gamergate was created by players, due to the ethics of video games and journalism starting to turn against the players. This has, of course, evolved over time into what we now call Gamergate 2, which is still raging on as we speak.
Yeah.
But this is when I'm told Bioware really changed their gears into we need to pander harder mode.
Why do people need to pander to a demographic that's like, I don't know, like 2% or something? Like, I don't know what it is, but it cannot be very, very large. So why would you just shift everything to the 2 or 3% or whatever, as opposed to keeping the 98, 97% of the base of who buys your game and plays it and enjoys it? That it just boggles my mind. It makes no sense.
Originally, as I was told, Bioware wanted to reject what the social justice warriors that were infiltrating these studios wanted to happen.
Yeah, of course, because they saw the writing on the wall. Those people that were fought back early, and they probably aren't there anymore. I guarantee it.
People like Anita Sarkeesian at this time were all of the rage with her feminist frequency nonsense, and demanding that games adhere to a more pro-woman, anti-man, specifically white male agenda. And like I said, Bioware initially was against this 100%.
Look, I mean, like I've said before, I have no problem with a woman protagonist, a main character, but it has to be written well, and it has to make sense. Like, if she's going to be like just totally kicking butt all the time, she needs to not only have some skills, she probably needs to have some sort of like I don't know, something extra in her quiver, right? I mean, anyways, girl boss stuff. It just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
There were people at the top of Bioware that were referred to as rock stars. These people were each in charge of different departments. They apparently had very big egos and threw their influence around all the time because, you know, they were the top dogs. I was also told the reason why Veilguard's codename was Morrison was because Bioware internally codenames their games based on various famous musicians. I'm going to assume this means Veilguard was named codename Morrison because of Jim Morrison, who is a famous musician, but there are other people with similar last names, but there you go.
That's a good technique.
Now you know why BioWare names their games weird things in codename ways anyways. During Gamergate 2, BioWare, as I'm told, was walking on eggshells the entire time because they were terrified of anything they had in their games that could disrupt or cause the public to not want to support them in the future. This led to a lot of assets being removed, especially in demos they were showing at events. One example that I was given was that there was a tech demo that had sexy female art in it, and the Rockstar art director at the time at BioWare demanded that this art stay within the demo because they believe that BioWare fans want games with blood, sex, and violence. And I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, it sells. Sex sells, right? I mean, you don't want to be seeing like pornographic stuff in games, but you know, I mean, it's a formula that works, and it's works since the beginning of advertisement.
And I mean, yeah, I agree, that is what we want, because that's what Origins was built upon. But this was considered too prudish, I guess, for lack of a better term, and it was removed anyway in order to not piss off this new wave of feminists that were infiltrating and rotting out these companies from the inside out.
Yeah.
Old BioWare, as I'm told, was not a place for DEI at all. Their only rule pretty much was to be respectful of everybody else and be professional.
Duh. Yeah. You need to be respectful. Have a normal working situation in the office.
Since this is a work environment.
Yes, thank you.
Besides that, back in the day, people, as I understand, were allowed to be whatever they wanted to be openly. Liberal, conservative, it didn't matter. Of course, now, it's not like that at all, clearly, as I'll show you, but BioWare did prioritize hiring women for a period of time. But it wasn't what you thought it was. It was actually for quality assurance. As I was...
Yeah, and that's totally fine, as long as they're, able to do the job. I don't care who you hire. It doesn't matter. Woman, man, black, white, green, purple, red, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just as long as you're competent and you have the skills to do the job, then fine, whatever.
Told women were found to be far more detail-oriented when it came to fine-tuning the quality of games before they came out versus their male counterparts. Like,
yeah, I agree. I actually did some testing for EA for a period of time, and we had a pretty good mix of guys and gals, but there were a lot more women, I noticed, in the different teams for the different games, you know, and which is fine. It totally worked fine, you know. So again, no problems with that. I never raised an eyebrow on any of the period of time that I worked at EA.
Finding bugs and such. And the female QAs were surpassing the male ones in terms of finding bugs and ensuring that the games were made to meet the standards of BioWare fans.
Yeah.
I have no problem with this at all. Again, the two genders have different strengths, and this furthers what I and many others already know.
Yeah.
Men are stronger for the most part physically, but women are usually more mindful and able to see things that men cannot as easily.
Yeah.
It's why they balance each other out.
Yep.
This is common sense.
Yep.
But anyway, also what I was told.
Preach on, Debian. Preach on. Preach the truth, brother.
Is that when Inquisition came out, at least, that the primary player base for Dragon Age was actually women over men. To be specific, it was women in their mid-20s to mid-30s that were actually the main demographic for these sorts of games. Which also doesn't surprise me, since women tend to gravitate towards games where they can customize and make characters and, you know, have romances, which are all big things that Dragon Age is known for.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense.
I was also told after Inquisition going into Anthem that Electronic Arts had people go to Bioware demanding that the developer would hire female consultants to help better shape their games into being for what the women wanted. Although Electronic Arts did not want to get consultation from the actual women who already worked at Bioware on these games, which makes about as little sense as you likely know.
Yeah.
What this meant is that they wanted to bring in those weird, woke feminists into Bioware to ensure that the games met their standards and not the demands of actual Bioware female fans.
Right.
This, as I was told, became the beginning of the end of Bioware, where this rot began to settle in and fester until Veilguard came out today. Following the release of Inquisition and the development of Anthem, I was told there was a mass layoff of core Bioware devs from the company. There was also this practice, as I'm told, where Bioware devs would be mandated to teach their role to that of hand-picked Electronic Arts employees.
Wow.
Then once the EA employee learned and understood the role of the Bioware dev shortly after, EA would actually just fire the dev that taught them and then replace them with their EA yes men and women employees that could then replicate what they could do but were loyal to EA over Bioware.
That is such a douchebag move. I'm sorry. There's so many issues I have with EA. I'm glad I don't work for them anymore. Oh man, they are really quite a horrible company.
Apparently, it became well known and feared within Bioware at this time that if an EA manager asked you to train a new hire in your position, it meant that you were going to get axed in less than a year for sure. This obviously destroyed morale at Bioware.
It's like, hey, go dig your grave and then jump in the pit. It's like, my gosh, how horrible. How horrible.
And caused many devs, like I said, to mass exodus their way out of the studio. Some refusing to teach someone what they did and rather just leaving and letting...
That's what I would do. If I knew that was happening and they approached me, I'd just be like, all right, cool. Well, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. See ya.
EA kick rocks and, panic instead. As my source told me, what was left of Bioware following the release of Anthem, especially going into Veilguard, was not the Bioware that you knew anymore. But in their own words, it's now a ghost of Bioware, and it's simply Electronic Arts yes men wearing the skin suit of Bioware over them to disguise their true intentions. And by the way, who's the director of Veilguard? Well, it's the same person that directed The Sims, which, there you go, an EA property.
Yeah.
This was terrible considering Bioware was originally promised by EA when they bought them that they would be able to operate as they did before with little oversight.
Yeah, of course, that's what they're going to say. And then they're going to do exactly what they did. I mean, as soon as I knew that EA bought Bioware, I was like, well, that's the end of Bioware as we know it. I didn't know what form it was going to turn into. But as soon as EA gets their little greedy little fingers into the company, they're done. They're done. They're no more the company that you loved before. It's horrible.
But this, over time, clearly did not become the case, and now we are where we are. Managers within Bioware also made sure to tell their employees who was a Bioware manager and who was an EA manager.
See, they're dividing, right? It's just like in politics. They divide by class, they divide by race, they divide by wealth, and that's how you ruin a company. That's how you ruin a country, actually. Poor Bioware. Man. Well, I hope the founders of Bioware just, is enjoying all the money they made, because, they tanked, they killed the company they started.
This basically meant that there was two separate entities, if you will, working within the halls of Bioware simultaneously. Very weird, right? The dev told me that they recall when they were working on Anthem as well that the game was not originally what players ended up seeing. Anthem, in their words, was a massive, quiet, open-world game with a non-linear story and then optional co-op. The best comparison that they could give me was it was Shadow of the Colossus in feel, but mixed with a science fiction version of Skyrim's world.
Wow, that would be awesome. That's not what we got. But that sounds really, really epic.
and your friends could join you, and it was drop in and drop out gameplay sort of stuff. The build was sent to EA's CEO Andrew Wilson, who played the demo over Christmas break and said that he demanded Bioware turn the game into a looter shooter, and well, the rest is history.
Man, these people don't understand what makes a good game, you know, and unfortunately they have like the final say and they have to be obeyed, right? I hate that. You know, when I was working in a game studio, I started at the end. I started like I was a designer, but I was just seeing all of these horrible decisions being made by the producers, and I was just like, I started like interjecting my ideas, and I think some of them didn't like that so much. Some of them actually got into the game, but most didn't. But it was just like, you guys don't know what makes a good game, and yet you're telling us because you're looking at some kind of like weird chart for, I don't even know, but they just don't know games.
Pivoting for a second here, actually, Andrew Wilson spoke recently on Veilguard as well. This is from that Park Place. EA CEO Andrew Wilson claims Dragon Age: The Veilguard has breakout potential in remarks that sound similar to Ubisoft CEO regarding Star Wars Outlaws. Andrew Wilson said during EA's Quarter 2 2025 earnings call to investors, and I quote, "It's an amazing time at EA, and in 2 days we will launch Dragon Age: The Veilguard. It's been 10 years since we launched its predecessor Game of the Year winner, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah.
Early critic scores are strong and reflect a high quality depth and detail in Niche's action-packed adventures."
Really? Did that really happen? I don't know. I don't know what he was looking at.
"We expect Dragon Age to be a great example of how our blockbuster storytelling engages and connects fans in truly unique ways.
Yeah, unique. They've never had to be shoved into a world of wokeness before.
Certainly think Veilguard has breakout potential. Again, 10 years ago, Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year and was a
This one's not going to win Game of the Year. Not even close.
very strong performer for us in the conduct of our business. This is entertainment. And so while much of our business has moved to live service moment to moment, deliver innovation and creativity for a deeply engaged community over the course of time, this opportunity to bring in incredibly high quality creative storytelling set in an amazing world, success almost certainly follows, and we will see that in the context of movies. And we're seeing that in the context of TV seasons, and we see that in the context of video games. When we think about what we have with Veilguard right now, we have a storied studio in Bioware. We have a storied IP in Dragon Age. We have a team that took extra time to make sure the world was rich and the characters were interesting and the story was compelling.
Wow, that guy is totally out of touch. He had no idea what's really going on. My gosh.
I think we are going into a market that has limited competition for this category of game given some of the moves that have been happening across the broader industry. And so while I think it's too early to predict the outcome, the critical reviews have been incredibly strong. The team feels very energized by what they have delivered, and my sense is that yes, it has breakout capabilities." End quote. So as you can see, Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, genuinely believes that Veilguard is what players have been waiting for in terms of Bioware's games. Again, we have seen some scathing reviews claiming that Veilguard is not at all what players want and feels like a Fisher-Price version of the series we loved.
Yeah.
Another source also showed me how Bioware is going out of their way to promote and hire the most identity politically driven activists that they can find. Also, allegedly as I was told, Bioware actually went over to the Mass Effect team to ask their writers to help on Veilguard. Because what I was told, the original writing for Veilguard was considered very cringe and awful, and the Mass Effect writing team that is there working on the next game had to come in and help iron out Veilguard, if you will. Apparently, one of the key parts that the Mass Effect writers worked on was actually Rook's dialogue, your playable character, because it was considered just plain awful before. But even with the help of the Mass Effect writers that are there, most of what the Veilguard writers wrote, apparently, it still made it into the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, just watch this clip of what is considered a romantic scene in Veilguard for proof.
Oh boy.
Just listen. You're not alone. Whatever's out there, we'll face it together, I promise. Together.
I could kiss you right now. I'm going to kiss you right now.
At least there's something related to it. It's your magic.
Rook?
You make the world spin, Lace Harding.
Rook!
What?
Lyrium. It's like I'm infused with lyrium.
I noticed it when we touched that night when we talked about your dreams.
You knew? You knew, and you still kissed me?
Wow, I feel drunk.
Yeah, it's because I turned your head into mush.
Or it's love.
You boob! This is not funny! Okay, I'll fix it. I promise. I will find a way and I will fix it. Okay? Okay? Damn it! No, don't touch!
Are you still here? You're not dead from the cringe? There is an even worse scene. However, EA and Bioware are apparently scrubbing this other cutscene specifically from the internet because it is such a mask-off moment for the game and the ideology behind it. So while I cannot show you the scene in this video, unfortunately, I can at least set up and explain the scene for you. So this cutscene stars everybody's favorite non-binary Kunari Tosh talking to Isabella from Dragon Age 2, who cameos in this game. I guess spoilers, but who really cares? This entire conversation is Isabella and Tosh gaslighting Rook, the playable character, and, you know, whoever is playing the game, into bending the knee when it comes to accepting non-binary as a legitimate way of identifying someone, and shaming you if you've ever misgendered someone by accident in real life. I'm not kidding, dude. I wish I could show you it here, but if I do, it's very likely that Bioware and EA will try to nuke me for it. But since I can't show you this clip, which is nuclear level cringe, instead I will show you a clip compiled by Twitter user Christina Tasty, which showcases the difference between Veilguard against Inquisition and Origins.
Okay,
so
cool.
Here, watch this.
In Kunadar, Krem would be an Akunatlak. That's what we call someone born one gender but living like another.
A person is born, Gunari or human or elven or dwarf. He doesn't choose that. The size of his hands, whether he is clever or foolish, the land he comes from, the color of his hair, these are beyond his control. We do not choose, we simply are.
And Kunari don't treat those Akun people any differently than a real man.
I don't understand. You look like a woman. Why would women ever wish to be men? That makes no sense. Women are priests, artisans, shopkeepers, or farmers. They don't fight.
As you saw, Sten from Origins clearly confirms that women are not able to fight within the Kunari at all. Of course, Tosh and Veilguard is very clearly not following the Kun. This was confirmed in another clip that, again, I can't show because Bioware will attack me if I do. The point is that the Bioware we knew versus the Bioware we have now are not the same companies at all. I wish the people who were against this at Bioware could just rise up and push back against it, because this is evidently not what players want from these games, and it saddens me to see this. Besides this, what I was also told is that Bioware has already cut down in terms of size following Veilguard's release. I don't know if it's layoffs or just people leaving after development is done, but yeah, from what I'm told, they're already downsizing the studio.
It's probably
what
both.
I'm also told is EA regularly schedules what are called town halls to make developers be subjected to the ramblings of middle-aged woke women about why they must check their privilege and accept DEI into their lives. Basically, these companies are trying to indoctrinate their employees into loyal, woke cultists.
Yeah, a few years ago, I won't mention the studio. It was a news studio here in Utah, and it was like right when DEI started to be interjected into companies, and man, the owner of our news studio was all in on doing that, and we had to mandatory sit through some of these kind of discussions and stuff. Oh, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It took everything I could do to not just like totally roll my eyes and say something to get me fired. But fortunately, you know, after that, I think they maybe read the room a little bit, the management, and so they still had those type of things yearly, every year, but it wasn't mandatory after that first round. So that was good because I never bothered with it again because it's garbage. And it's toxic, I think.
Now, in terms of the person who works at Bioware right now, and I really can't tell you who this person is, because if I told you, you would be so surprised. I'm not kidding you. But anyway, they said that current Bioware is more woke than anyone is thinking right now. Like, they're so identity politically driven over there right now, this very instant, that whatever you think it is, it's so much worse than that. Apparently, it's more so about getting more women into these companies than anyone else. Men are pretty much excluded entirely.
And that is going to be the absolute downfall of the studio. They're not gonna be around much longer unless somebody steps in. And it's not because they're hiring women, okay? So don't I'll get triggered. It's because they're going to be hiring women just because they want to hire women, and most of those women are not going to be qualified at all to do whatever they're being brought into, and it's going to be for various jobs. And yeah, and when I worked at the game studio, it was like, I don't know, it had to have been 90 something men. We had one executive producer, and we had somebody doing modeling and stuff. She was pretty good. But yeah, we didn't have a lot of women, and that's fine. I mean, the women we did have were actually competent. So again, no issues. We weren't being woke. So everybody knew their job and they did it well.
Unless they identify as some form of non-whatever and so on. At Bioware anyway, as I was told, they are only interested in hiring people who they can control within the company. They want essentially what can only be considered as cultists that parrot and embrace the ideology that the higher-ups at Bioware demand. Bioware, as we know it, is a corpse being worn by EA yes-men that is filled to the brim with cult-like pandering weirdos. And as this person said, once the new director, Corinne Bush, came onto Veilguard, that's when all of this stuff got really, really bad. I mean, I've been told this by devs at other studios too, but it seems like BioWare as its own entity is one of the wokest, if not the most, in the entire industry right now that we are aware of. This game is, for all intents and purposes, genuine propaganda on the same level as Dustborn, if not even worse. I do think that Veilguard will be the thing that breaks the wokes back in terms of acceptance, because they've simply gone too far this time, and I think now that the game is out in the wild, you're going to be seeing plenty of examples getting released that I will no doubt be chronicling for all of you to see, so that we have proof for years to come. This simply cannot stand. I wish I didn't have to buy this game to experience it so that I could review it. I feel terrible knowing that I gave any amount of money for this game at all. But if I have to waste some of my own money to save hundreds of thousands of others out there from wasting their own, then I think it's a good way of going about it. Do I think you should buy Veilguard? No, I truly do not think so. Based on what we can see, this just may be the most offensively on-the-nose woke dumpster fire that even trumps Dustborn, Suicide Squad, Concord, any of it. This is the event horizon of the year when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't think there's going to be a more divisive and pandering game this year than this. I just don't really see it happening at all. And I would be genuinely surprised if BioWare survives this game's release. Their best case scenario is EA gives them another final chance and then just pours this entire studio into the next Mass Effect. And then if that fails or pushes some kind of nonsense, then it's over.
Which it is. It's going to be over. Because there's no way that the Mass Effect team is isolated from all this woke garbage. That's impossible at this point. As far as we've been told. So Mass Effect is going to be garbage, which breaks my heart because it's one of my favorite franchises of all time. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Maybe something will drastically turn around, and somehow Mass Effect and their team will just put out a normal game, right? But I don't think so.
But I wouldn't be surprised at this point if the underperformance or reception to Veilguard closes down the studio forever, and Bioware just kind of dies for good.
Yeah.
And like I said before, Bioware has clearly gone out of their way to hire activists for these positions on purpose. Speaking of hiring activists, Savvy, a friend of the channel, shared this information about one of the people that has been hired by Bioware to work on Veilguard. As Savvy puts it, wanting a glimpse into who is responsible for the super quirky and talented writing we've seen so far of Dragon Age, what I love most about the writing we've seen is that it truly speaks from an authentic, self-inserting kind of way that is void of nuance in exchange for low-effort knockoff Marvel humor from someone who substitutes reality for fantasy and fantasy for reality. The person's name is Laura Kate Dale. Don't harass this person, and the name may not seem familiar at first, but you'll realize who this is in a bit here. They said via Twitter, "I just got approved to say this. I worked on Dragon Age the Veilguard. I've been sitting on this secret for nearly 4 years, and I am so excited to finally be able to tell everyone I'm in the credits. Thank you so much to Patrick Weeks for reaching out to get me involved." Laura Kate Dale describes themselves as a content creator who is an author and consultant on queer representation, specifically within video games and accessibility. It's all the usual buzzwords you've heard before, but yeah, this person has officially worked on the new Dragon Age. Now, I told you that you would recognize this person, so it turns out this Laura worked for Kotaku before they worked at Bioware on Veilguard. In fact, you may remember that one story Kotaku released where they claimed that Nintendo Super Smash Bros. Ultimate had a disability slur included involving Joker from Persona 5. And this ended up being fake, and it caused a huge ruckus and was yet another reason why ethics in video games journalism is a thing that we need to keep accountable. Well, yeah, you probably guessed it by now, but the same person that did this on Dragon Age, they made that article at Kotaku as well. This same Laura was also the one who infamously wrote the article about the late Total Biscuit and the Gamergate stuff too. That article, by the way, if you look it up on Kotaku, is now suspiciously gone and no longer exists. I should also state that this Laura, after that Smash Brothers disability slur story that they published, it got so much backlash that they were actually forced by Kotaku to step down and leave the company.
Wow.
They were accused of rage baiting and posting false information to spin a story for the website. You know how bad you gotta be that Kotaku of all places fires you because you're disingenuous? But that's exactly what happened here.
Wow.
This is who Bioware hired to work on Veilguard, a literal propaganda games journalist with activist-like mentality and all of that. Also, the person who hired Laura, of course, it's this guy they showed in that Dragon Age video from years ago. Everything about this game is just identity woke maxing to the fullest. There's no other way of putting it. It's awful, man, but it needs to be said because we know these journalists will never tell you what's really happening out of fear of blacklisting or something. But they can blacklist me all they want because I can care less. It's never going to stop me from telling you guys the truth. We are witnessing the death of a beloved studio, but it's clearly not the studio that we remember. I would say don't buy this game. And if you really want to play it, at the very least, wait for a sale, I guess. I mean, it's already November. The game will inevitably get price slash sometime come this holiday season.
Probably.
But in general, if you had little interest to begin with, no, don't do it. Send a message. Go watch whoever your favorite streamer is or someone else playing it and then suffer through it that way instead. You do not need to waste your own money on this. Thank you for watching. I'll have a new video in the coming day or two. Until then, have a wonderful day. Subscribe. Thanks to my supporters, and please take care of yourselves. And I'll see you in the next one.
All right. Well, again, that was a great video, and I appreciate everyone that came and watched today. So yeah, if you enjoy my reactions, please consider subscribing, liking. I'd love to hear your comments down below. It'd be nice to hear from you. And yeah, this is just crazy. I don't know how long this woke infestation is going to be there, but at some point it'll be healed and it'll be out of the system and everything will go back to normal, good games. All right. Well, you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Love you all. And we'll see you in the next video. All right. Stay safe. See ya.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a